The shrill ring of my phone cut through the darkness like a knife. 3:17 a.m. No one calls at 3:17 a.m. with good news. I fumbled for the device on my nightstand, squinting at the unfamiliar number as my heart already started racing. Rebecca stirred beside me, or so I thought in my half-conscious state. "Hello?" My voice came out rougher than intended. "Mr. Taylor? This is Carolina's Medical Center. Your wife, Rebecca Taylor, was brought in from a car accident. She has minor injuries, but we need you to come immediately." The words hit me like ice water. I bolted upright, suddenly wide awake. "What? Rebecca? But she's right here." I turned toward her side of the bed. Empty. The sheets were cold. "Sir? Can you come to the emergency room as soon as possible?" Yes, I'm on my way." I hung up and scrambled out of bed, my mind racing. Where was Rebecca? I'd gone to sleep around midnight, and she'd been working late in her home office. She must have gone out for something, and I pulled on clothes with shaking hands, grabbed my keys, and rushed to the garage. Rebecca's car was gone. How had I not heard her leave? Then again, our condo's garage was well insulated, and I was a deep sleeper after long days at the law firm. The drive to Carolina's Medical Center felt like an eternity, though it was only 12 minutes at that hour. I kept calling Rebecca's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. What kind of accident? Minor injuries. What did that mean exactly? My legal mind was already cataloging questions. Was another driver involved? Was she at fault? Had she been drinking? I screeched into the ER parking lot and jogged through the automatic doors, my dress shoes clicking against the polished floor. The fluorescent lights were harsh after the darkness outside. "I'm Michael Taylor," I told the receptionist, still catching my breath. "My wife Rebecca was brought in from a car accident." The woman, probably in her 50s with kind eyes, typed on her computer. "Yes, Rebecca Taylor. Room 8. She's awake and being treated for minor lacerations. Down the hall, turn left." Relief flooded through me. Awake was good. Minor lacerations were manageable. I hurried down the corridor, my lawyer's brain already shifting into practical mode. We'd need to contact insurance, possibly deal with police reports, maybe rental cars. Room 8 was partially curtained. I could hear Rebecca's voice inside, speaking with what sounded like a nurse. I pushed through the curtain, ready to wrap my wife in my arms and hear what happened. Rebecca was sitting up in the hospital bed, looking pale but alert. She had a few small bandages on her face and a larger one on her left arm. She was talking to a male nurse who was checking her vitals. "Rebecca, thank God you're okay." I moved toward her bed. "What happened?" The hospital called, and the nurse looked up at me with a professional smile. "You must be the husband." "Good. We've been waiting for family members." He gestured with his clipboard. "And the male passenger, is he your husband?" He pointed toward the next bed. The world stopped. I turned slowly to look where he was pointing. In the bed adjacent to Rebecca's, partially hidden by another curtain, was a man I recognized. David Mitchell from Rebecca's company. He had similar injuries, bandages on his face and arms, and he was staring at me with an expression I can only describe as pure panic. "The male passenger," I repeated slowly, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. Rebecca's face had gone white. "Michael, I can explain." "Explain what?" The words came out sharper than I intended. The nurse seemed to sense the tension and quietly stepped back. "Explain why you were in a car accident at 3 a.m. with..." I gestured toward David, who was now trying to sit up in his bed, looking like he wanted to crawl under it. "With him?" "It's not what you think," Rebecca started, but her voice was shaking. "Then what is it?" I moved closer to her bed, my lawyer instincts kicking in even as my personal world was crumbling. "Because what I think is that my wife was in a car with her male colleague at 3 a.m., and I'm just finding out about it from a hospital nurse." David finally spoke up, his voice strained. Look, Michael, this is a misunderstanding. Are you talking to me? I turned on him with a fury that surprised even me. Are you actually talking to me right now? Michael, please, Rebecca tried again. We were just... Where were you going? I cut her off. At 3 a.m. Where were you going? The silence stretched between us. I could hear the hum of medical equipment, distant conversations from other rooms, the squeak of shoes on linoleum. But neither Rebecca nor David said a word. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. Who are you calling? Rebecca asked, panic creeping into her voice. The police, I said simply. I want to see the accident report. It took exactly 23 minutes for Officer Martinez to arrive with the preliminary report. 23 minutes of the most uncomfortable silence I'd ever experienced. Rebecca tried to talk to me twice, but I held up my hand both times. David attempted to leave, claiming he felt better, but the medical staff insisted he needed observation for a possible concussion. Officer Martinez was professional and thorough. The accident had occurred at 2:47 a.m. on Steel Creek Road, about 15 miles south of Charlotte. Rebecca's car had hit a guardrail during what appeared to be an attempt to avoid an animal in the road. At least, that's what both passengers had reported. Steel Creek Road, I repeated. And where exactly were you headed at that time of night? Rebecca and David exchanged a glance that told me everything I needed to know. We were... Rebecca started. David had... His car broke down, I said slowly. And he called you. At what time? Another silence. What time did David call you, Rebecca? I don't remember exactly. Check your phone. My voice was getting dangerously quiet. Check your call log. Rebecca's hand moved protectively over her purse. My phone was damaged in the accident. Officer Martinez consulted his notes. Actually, ma'am, your phone was found in the vehicle undamaged. It's in the bag with your other personal effects. He gestured to a clear plastic bag on the bedside table. I reached for the bag, but Rebecca grabbed my wrist. Michael, you're being unreasonable. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. In 11 years of marriage, I'd never seen her look scared of me. But she did now. Am I? I pulled my arm free and took the bag. Rebecca's phone was indeed intact. Let's see how unreasonable I'm being. I powered on the phone. No password. Rebecca had never kept secrets from me before, had never needed to. The call log showed the last call made was at 1:47 a.m. to David's number. Duration, 37 seconds. You called him, I said, showing her the screen. At 1:47 a.m., you called David. I can explain that, David said quickly from his bed. My wife was... Your wife? I turned to him. Your wife? You mean Sarah? Mother of your 2 children, Sarah? David's face crumpled. Look, this isn't what it looks like. Really? Because what it looks like is that my wife called her married colleague at almost 2 a.m., they met up somewhere, and they were driving around together in the middle of the night. What it looks like is that when the car crashed, you were both thrown around inside because you weren't wearing seat belts. What it looks like, I said, my voice getting harder with each word, is exactly what I think it looks like. I turned back to Rebecca. How long? Michael, how long has this been going on? She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were filled with tears. It's not what you think. It's not some sordid affair. We care about each other. It's real, Michael. What David and I have is real. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not denial, admission, and worse, justification. How long? I repeated. 6 months, she whispered. I stood there for a moment, processing. 6 months. Half a year of lies, deception, betrayal. Half a year of coming home to a woman who was living a double life. Half a year of being made a fool of. 6 months, I said finally. 6 months of this caring about each other. Michael, I never meant for you to find out this way. I was going to tell you. We both were going to leave our marriages and leave our marriages. I looked at David, who was staring at the ceiling like he wanted to disappear. Sarah knows? No, he said quietly. Not yet. But you were going to tell her. Both of you were going to break up your families for this real thing you have. Rebecca was crying now. I know how it sounds, but Michael, we haven't been happy for years. You know that. We're like roommates who happen to share a bank account. The casual cruelty of that statement, delivered while she lay in a hospital bed after spending the night with another man, was breathtaking. Roommates, I repeated. Yes, we barely talk anymore except about schedules and bills. When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you asked me how I was feeling, what I was thinking about? I stared at her. When was the last time you gave me the chance? You've been living a lie for 6 months, Rebecca. Every conversation we've had, every meal we've shared, every time you've said, I love you, it's all been a lie. That's not fair. Fair. My voice rose, and Officer Martinez shifted uncomfortably. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been having this conversation 6 months ago. Fair would have been telling me you were unhappy instead of sneaking around with a married man. Fair would have been ending our marriage before you started your new relationship. I turned to David. And you. Does your wife think you're working late tonight? Does she know you're in a hospital bed because you were out with another woman? David couldn't meet my eyes. I'm going to tell her everything. When? When were you going to tell her? Before or after you and Rebecca left your spouses and rode off into the sunset together? We weren't trying to hurt anyone, Rebecca said. We just found each other. Sometimes these things happen. These things happen, I repeated, like random acts of nature, like hurricanes or earthquakes, things beyond human control. I looked between them, my wife of 11 years and her lover, both bandaged and broken in their hospital beds, both looking at me like I was the unreasonable one for being upset about their betrayal. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my legal training taking over. I'm going home. I'm calling my attorney first thing in the morning. Rebecca, don't come home tonight. Go to your sister's. Go to a hotel. I don't care. But don't come home. Michael, please. Don't. I held up my hand. Don't say another word. Officer Martinez, I'll need a copy of this report sent to my attorney, and I want to know if there are any charges being filed. No charges at this time, he said carefully. Single vehicle accident, no other parties involved. Right. Single vehicle. I looked at Rebecca one more time. 11 years. 11 years of marriage, and this is how it ends. In a hospital room at 3 a.m. because you couldn't even carry on your affair competently. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving them both behind. In the hallway, I had to stop and lean against the wall. My hands were shaking, and I felt like I might throw up. The nurse who had been treating Rebecca approached me cautiously. Mr. Taylor, are you all right? No, I said honestly. I'm really not. Is there anything I can do? I looked back toward room 8 where my marriage had just died a brutal, public death. Can you make sure she has someone to pick her up when she's discharged? She won't be coming home with me. The nurse nodded sympathetically. Of course. We can help arrange transportation. Thank you. I walked out of the hospital into the pre-dawn darkness. The October air was crisp, and I realized I was still wearing the clothes I'd hastily thrown on. Khakis and a polo shirt, no jacket. I sat in my car for a long time, engine running, heat on, trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Please let me explain when you're ready to listen. I deleted it without responding and drove home to our empty condo. Our empty condo that suddenly felt like a crime scene. I walked through the rooms, seeing everything differently now. Rebecca's home office, where she'd claimed to be working late so many nights. The kitchen, where we'd had breakfast 6 hours ago like a normal married couple. Our bedroom, where I'd been sleeping peacefully while she was out with David. I sat on the edge of our bed and called my law partner, Jim Morrison, even though it was almost 5 a.m. "Michael, what's wrong?" Jim's voice was groggy but alert. "I need a divorce attorney, the best one in Charlotte, and I need them first thing Monday morning." "Jesus, what happened?" I told him. All of it. The call, the hospital, the revelation. Jim listened without interrupting. "I'm sorry, man," he said when I finished. "That's brutal, but you're smart to move fast. Give me a few hours and I'll have 3 names for you." "Thanks, Jim." "Michael, you're going to be okay. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you're going to be fine." I wished I could believe him. I spent the rest of the night sitting in my living room, watching the sun come up over Charlotte's skyline through our floor-to-ceiling windows. The windows Rebecca had insisted on when we bought this place 3 years ago because she loved the view. Everything in this condo bore her mark, her choices, her preferences. How was I supposed to live here without being reminded of her every moment? Around 8 a.m. my phone started ringing. Rebecca's sister calling, probably at Rebecca's request. I sent it to voicemail. Then Rebecca's mother. Voicemail. Then Rebecca herself, 3 times. All to voicemail. I made coffee and forced myself to eat something, though it tasted like cardboard. Then I showered, put on a suit, and went to the office. I had a merger to finalize for a client, and whatever else was happening in my personal life, my professional responsibilities remained. But I couldn't concentrate. Every time I tried to focus on contracts and due diligence, I saw Rebecca's face when she admitted the affair. When she said what she and David had was real. When she called our marriage a roommate situation. Had she been right about that? Had we become distant, disconnected? I thought back over the past year, trying to remember the last time we'd had a meaningful conversation that wasn't about logistics. When had we stopped talking and started just coordinating? But even if she was right, even if our marriage had become routine, that didn't justify betrayal. That didn't excuse 6 months of lies and deception. If she was unhappy, she should have talked to me. She should have suggested counseling or separation or something other than sneaking around with David Mitchell. David. I knew him peripherally through Rebecca's work events. Pleasant enough guy, seemed devoted to his family. I'd met his wife Sarah at a company Christmas party 2 years ago. Nice woman, worked part-time as a nurse while raising their kids. She had no idea what was coming. My intercom buzzed. "Michael, Jim Morrison's here to see you." "Send him in." Jim walked into my office carrying a legal pad and wearing a grim expression. "I've got those names for you, but first, I want you to take a step back and think about this." "Think about what?" "About whether you want to go nuclear or try to salvage something." I stared at him. "Salvage what?" "My wife has been sleeping with another man for 6 months. She admitted it to my face last night. What exactly am I supposed to salvage?" "Your financial future, for one thing. Nuclear divorces are expensive, Michael. They destroy wealth for both parties. Sometimes it's better to be strategic." "I am being strategic. I want her out of my life as completely as possible." Jim sat down across from my desk. "Okay, then we're talking about war. And if you want war, you need to understand what that means in North Carolina." He opened his legal pad. First, the good news. North Carolina is one of the few states that still has alienation of affection laws. You can sue David personally for destroying your marriage. If you can prove the affair caused the divorce, you could be looking at substantial damages. How substantial? Depends on your income, your lifestyle, the impact on your earning capacity. But given your combined household income and David's apparent financial resources, we could be talking six figures, maybe more. That got my attention. What else? North Carolina is also a fault state for divorce. Rebecca's adultery will affect alimony calculations. She's probably not getting spousal support, and if she does, it'll be limited. Good. Property division is equitable distribution, not community property, so we have some flexibility there. Given that you've been the primary breadwinner and she's been cheating, we can probably negotiate a favorable split. Jim leaned forward. But Michael, you need to understand something. If you go this route, alienation of affection, fault-based divorce, fighting over every asset, this is going to get ugly. Rebecca will fight back. She'll dig up every flaw in your marriage, every argument you've had, every way you failed as a husband. She'll make you the villain to justify her actions. Let her try. Are you prepared for that? Are you prepared to have your private life dissected in court documents? To have colleagues and friends reading about your marriage problems in legal filings? I thought about it. As a corporate attorney, I understood the public nature of legal proceedings. But I also understood something else. Rebecca had already humiliated me. She'd already made me a fool. At least this way, I could fight back. Yes, I said. I'm prepared for that. Jim nodded. Then we're going to war. Here are your 3 options for counsel. He handed me a sheet with 3 names and phone numbers. Patricia Reynolds is the most aggressive. She'll try to destroy Rebecca and take everything she can. Marcus Webb is more strategic. He'll focus on maximizing your financial outcome while minimizing drama. Sandra Kim is somewhere in between. I looked at the names. I knew Patricia Reynolds by reputation. She was known for representing high net worth men in bitter divorces. Her motto, according to office gossip, was, "Leave them with nothing but regret." I want to meet with Reynolds first. I figured. I already called her. She can see you at 2 p.m. today. Thanks, Jim. I owe you. No, you don't. Just take care of yourself. And Michael? Whatever happens, don't let this make you bitter. Rebecca screwed up, not you. Don't let her actions change who you are. After Jim left, I tried again to focus on work, but it was hopeless. I kept thinking about Rebecca's words. We haven't been happy for years. Had I been blind to her unhappiness? Had I been a bad husband? I pulled up our shared calendar on my computer, looking back over the past 6 months. Rebecca's schedule had definitely changed. More travel, more evening events, more weekend work. I'd assumed it was related to her promotion in September. Now I realized it was probably when the affair intensified. September. That would have been about a month after the affair started, according to her timeline. I scrolled back further, looking for clues I'd missed. In July, Rebecca had gone to a healthcare marketing conference in Atlanta. 3 days. Had David been there too? I opened my laptop and did something I'd never done before. I started investigating my own wife. It took about 30 minutes to find David's LinkedIn profile and trace his conference attendance. Yes, he'd been at the Atlanta conference. Same hotel, same dates. That's probably where it started. I felt sick. While I'd been working late and handling a complex merger, my wife had been falling in love with another man. While I'd been building our future, she'd been planning to leave it. My phone buzzed. Another text from Rebecca. Michael, I'm staying at Sarah's. Please call me when you're ready to talk like adults. Sarah's, Rebecca's sister. Which meant Sarah knew about the affair. How many people had known while I remained clueless? I drove to Patricia Reynolds' office with a mixture of anger and determination. Her law firm occupied 2 floors of a gleaming downtown tower with panoramic views of the city. The receptionist led me to a corner office where Patricia herself was waiting. Patricia Reynolds was exactly what I expected. Mid-50s, perfectly styled, wearing a power suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She looked like she could dismantle someone's life before lunch and still have time for a manicure. Mr. Taylor, she said, standing to shake my hand. I'm sorry to meet under these circumstances, but I'm glad you called. Jim Morrison gave me the basics, but I want to hear it from you. I told her everything, from the 3 a.m. call to Rebecca's admission to David's panic. Patricia took notes and asked probing questions. How much do you know about David Mitchell's financial situation? Not much. He's a regional sales director for a medical device company. Probably makes decent money, but nothing spectacular. Married? Yes, 2 kids. Good. Married men with children have more to lose. They're more likely to settle out of court. She made another note. What's your household net worth? I gave her the numbers. Our combined income, our investment portfolio, the condo value, the vacation home in Asheville. Impressive. You've built quite a life together. She looked up from her notes. Which brings me to my first question. Are you absolutely certain you want to destroy it? Excuse me? Marriage counseling. Separation instead of divorce. Giving Rebecca a chance to end the affair and recommit to the marriage. Some men in your situation choose that path. I stared at her. Are you suggesting I should forgive my wife for a 6-month affair? I'm suggesting you consider all your options. Divorce is expensive and emotionally brutal. Reconciliation is sometimes more cost-effective. Cost-effective. I shook my head. Ms. Reynolds, my wife admitted last night that she and her lover were planning to leave their spouses. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a brief fling. This was a calculated betrayal over 6 months. There's nothing to reconcile. Patricia smiled, a sharp, predatory expression. Good. I prefer clients who are certain, because once we start this process, there's no going back. Rebecca and her attorney will fight dirty. They'll claim you were emotionally absent, sexually inadequate, financially controlling, whatever they need to claim to justify her actions. Let them. They'll subpoena your work records, your emails, your phone records. They'll interview your friends and colleagues looking for anything that makes you look bad. I understand. And we'll do the same to her. We'll document every lie she told, every deception, every dollar she spent on her affair. We'll interview David's wife, Rebecca's co-workers, anyone who might have relevant information. By the time we're done, everyone in Charlotte will know exactly what Rebecca did and who she really is. The prospect should have bothered me. Instead, it felt like justice. When can we start? Right now. I'll need a $50,000 retainer, and we'll file separation papers this week. North Carolina requires a 1-year separation before absolute divorce, but we can handle property division and support issues immediately. And the alienation of affection suit against David? That comes after we gather evidence. We'll need to prove the affair, prove it caused the breakdown of your marriage, and document your damages. It'll take a few months, but when we're done, Mr. Mitchell will wish he'd never heard your wife's name. I wrote the check and left Patricia's office feeling like I'd just declared war, which I supposed I had. That evening, I came home to find Rebecca's car in our parking garage. My chest tightened as I rode the elevator up to our floor. I didn't want to see her, didn't want to have whatever conversation she thought we needed to have. She was in the living room when I walked in, sitting on our couch with a glass of wine, still wearing the same clothes from the hospital. She looked exhausted and fragile, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of the protective instinct that had defined our marriage. Then I remembered David's face in the hospital bed next to hers. I thought you were staying at your sister's, I said, not sitting down. I needed to get some things, and I wanted to talk to you. There's nothing to talk about. Michael, please, just sit down for 5 minutes. Let me explain. Explain what? How you've been lying to me for 6 months? How you were planning to leave me for David? How our marriage is just a roommate situation? I stayed standing. Which part needs explaining? Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. The part where I never meant to hurt you. The part where this just happened. David and I didn't plan this. You didn't plan to have an affair. No, we didn't. We were just working together and we became friends and then... She wiped her eyes. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. What way was it supposed to happen? You were going to leave me eventually, right? You said you both were going to leave your spouses. Eventually, yes. But not like this. Not with you finding out in a hospital room. We wanted to handle it properly, tell you both when the time was right. When the time was right, I laughed bitterly. When would that have been, Rebecca? After another 6 months of lies? After a year? When exactly was the right time to tell me my marriage was over? I don't know, she said quietly. I just know it wasn't supposed to be like this. I sat down across from her, not because I wanted to, but because I was suddenly too tired to keep standing. Tell me something. When you came home to me after being with him, how did you do it? How did you look me in the eye and say, I love you, and mean nothing by it? I did mean it. I do love you, Michael. That's what makes this so complicated. You love me. Yes. But you're in love with him. She hesitated. Yes. And you see the difference. Don't you? Can't you understand that it's possible to love someone and still not be right for them? To care about someone and still know that you're not meant to be together? I studied her face, this woman I'd been married to for 11 years, trying to see if there was any part of the Rebecca I'd fallen in love with still there. No, I said finally. I can't understand that, because when I married you, I promised to love you and be faithful to you for better or worse. And when things got routine or difficult or boring, I didn't go looking for someone else. I tried to work on us. When? When did you try to work on us? Every day. By coming home to you instead of staying late at the office when I could have. By planning vacations and making dinner reservations and remembering our anniversary. By building a life with you. That's not the same thing and you know it. When was the last time you asked me about my dreams, my fears, what I wanted out of life? When was the last time you told me you were unhappy? We stared at each other across the coffee table, and I realized we were having the conversation we should have had months or maybe years ago. Too late now. I filed for separation today, I said. Rebecca's face went pale. What? I hired an attorney. We're filing this week. Michael, you can't be serious. One night, and you're filing for divorce? One night? Rebecca, you've been having an affair for 6 months. You admitted you were planning to leave me. What exactly am I supposed to do with that information? Give us a chance to work it out. Go to counseling. Take some time apart to figure out what we both want. I know what I want. I want a wife who doesn't cheat on me. I want a marriage built on honesty and fidelity. You can't give me that. How do you know? What if I ended things with David? What if we started over? I looked at her carefully. Is that what you want? To end things with David and try again with me? She was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Maybe. If we could fix what's wrong between us. What's wrong between us is that you're in love with another man? You said so yourself. Can you just turn that off? People make choices, Michael. Love isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you choose. You're right. And you chose David. You chose him every time you lied to me, every time you snuck around with him, every time you came home and pretended everything was normal. You made your choice. I stood up. I want you out of here tonight. Go to your sister's. Go to a hotel. I don't care. But I don't want you here. This is my home too. Not anymore. My attorney will be in touch about property division and support. Don't contact me except through her. Michael, don't. I held up my hand. Don't say another word. Just go. Rebecca stood slowly, picked up her purse and walked toward the door. She stopped and turned back. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry it happened this way. So am I. I'm sorry I wasted 11 years of my life on someone who could betray me so easily. The words hit her like a slap. She flinched, and for a moment, I felt guilty for being so cruel. Then I remembered where she'd been at 3 a.m., and the guilt vanished. After she left, I poured myself a scotch and stood at our windows, looking out at the Charlotte skyline. Somewhere out there, David Mitchell was probably having a similar conversation with his wife. I wondered if Sarah was as blindsided as I had been, or if she'd suspected something. I thought about calling her, warning her about what was coming. But that wasn't my responsibility. David would have to face his own consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Reynolds. Separation papers will be ready for filing tomorrow. I'll need Rebecca's current address for service. I texted back Sarah's address and poured another scotch. The next few days passed in a blur of legal paperwork and professional obligations. Patricia was as ruthless as advertised. Within 48 hours, she'd filed separation papers, requested temporary spousal support hearings, and begun the process of asset documentation. Rebecca hired her own attorney, someone from a smaller firm who specialized in collaborative divorce. I almost laughed when Patricia told me, "Collaborative divorce?" As if there was anything collaborative about what Rebecca had done. The real blow came Thursday morning. Patricia called me at the office with news that made everything else seem trivial. "I've been investigating David Mitchell's background," she said. "We may have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "He's been having financial difficulties, significant ones. Credit card debt, mortgage problems, car loans. The man is leveraged to the hilt." "Why is that a problem for us?" "Because it affects our alienation of affection case. If he doesn't have assets, we can't collect damages, and it might explain why he was interested in Rebecca in the first place." That hit me like a punch to the gut. "You think he targeted her for her money?" "It's possible. A marketing director making 6 figures, married to a corporate attorney. Your household income probably looked very attractive to someone drowning in debt." I sat back in my chair, processing this new information. Had Rebecca been naive enough to fall for someone who was using her? Or had she known about David's financial problems and not cared? "There's more," Patricia continued. "I checked with their company's HR department. Rebecca and David were both assigned to the same regional territory in July, right around the time their affair started. But here's the interesting part. David requested that assignment. He specifically asked to work with Rebecca's team. He requested it. Yes, which suggests premeditation. This wasn't a random romance that developed naturally. David specifically maneuvered to get close to your wife. I thought about Rebecca's words. It just happened. We didn't plan this. More lies, apparently. What does this mean for our case? It strengthens it considerably. If we can prove David deliberately pursued a married woman for financial gain, we're looking at enhanced damages. This wasn't just an affair. It was predatory behavior. After I hung up, I sat in my office staring out at the city. How had I misjudged so badly? How had I not seen that my wife was vulnerable to this kind of manipulation? Then I realized something that made me even angrier. Maybe Rebecca had known. Maybe she'd known about David's financial problems and hadn't cared. Maybe she'd even liked the idea of being someone's financial salvation. Maybe it made her feel needed in a way our stable, successful marriage never had. That afternoon, I got a call from Rebecca herself. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. What do you want, Rebecca? I wanted to warn you about something. David's wife found out. Found out what? About us. Everything. Someone told her about the accident and she put it together. Good. She deserved to know. Michael, she's not handling it well. She called my office, screaming at me. She threatened to call your law firm and tell them about the affair. I almost smiled. Is that supposed to worry me? My partners already know. I told them myself. She also said she's going to sue me. Something about alienation of affection. That's interesting. I'm filing the same suit against David. There was silence on the other end of the line. You're suing David? I'm destroying David. By the time my attorney is finished with him, He'll wish he'd never heard your name. Michael, that's cruel. His children will suffer. His children are suffering anyway. Their father is a liar and a cheat who targeted a married woman for financial gain. They were going to find out eventually. Financial gain? What are you talking about? Oh, Rebecca, you really don't know, do you? I couldn't keep the pity out of my voice. David is broke, deeply in debt. Credit cards, mortgage, car loans. The man is drowning financially. And then he met you. Successful marketing director married to a corporate attorney. What a lucky coincidence. That's not true. David loves me. David requested the work assignment that put him on your team. He specifically asked to work with you. This wasn't some random romance, Rebecca. You were targeted. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Rebecca? Are you there? Yes? Her voice was small, broken. Now, do you understand why I can't forgive this? It wasn't just an affair. You were played. And instead of coming to me when you were unhappy, instead of trying to work on our marriage, you fell for the first man who paid attention to you. I have to go, she said, and hung up. I felt a moment of satisfaction, followed immediately by emptiness. Hurting Rebecca didn't make me feel better. It just made everything feel more pointless. That evening, I drove out to David and Sarah's neighborhood. I didn't have a plan. I just wanted to see where the other half of this disaster lived. Their house was in a decent suburb, but Patricia had been right about the financial problems. The lawn needed work, the driveway had cracks, and there was a for sale sign in the yard. As I sat in my car across the street, Sarah Mitchell came out to get the mail. She looked exhausted, older than I remembered from the Christmas party. When she saw me, she stopped and stared for a moment, then walked over to my car. I rolled down the window. You're Michael Taylor, she said. Not a question. Yes, I'm sorry to bother you. You just wanted to see the other victims. She leaned against my car door. David told me everything. About the affair, about the accident, about your lawsuit. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know this isn't your fault. No, it's not. Her voice was bitter. But I'm paying for it anyway. Lost my marriage, have to sell my house, explain to my children why Daddy doesn't live here anymore. Where is David now? Staying at his brother's. I filed for divorce yesterday. She straightened up. I hope you take him for everything he's worth. Which isn't much, unfortunately. Sarah, if there's anything I can do, there isn't. But thank you for saying it. She looked back at her house. 11 years. That's how long I was married to him. I thought I knew him. 11 years. That's how long I was married to Rebecca. Funny how you can live with someone for over a decade and not really know them at all. She stepped back from my car. Good luck with your lawsuit, Michael. I hope you get justice. I drove home feeling worse than before. Sarah Mitchell was collateral damage in this whole mess, and there was nothing I could do to fix that. Her children would grow up in a broken home because their father couldn't keep his promises. Just like I was learning that promises meant nothing to some people. The next few weeks settled into a grim routine. Days at the office trying to focus on work, evenings alone in a condo that felt like a mausoleum of my failed marriage. Rebecca's belongings were still everywhere. Her books, her artwork, her coffee mug in the kitchen cabinet. I couldn't bring myself to pack them up, but I couldn't stand looking at them either. Patricia kept me updated on the legal proceedings. Rebecca's attorney was pushing for substantial spousal support, claiming she'd sacrificed her career advancement to support mine. It was nonsense. Rebecca had always been ambitious and successful, but divorce attorneys say whatever they need to say. The alienation of affection case against David was proceeding more slowly. Patricia's investigators were documenting everything. David's debts, his work history, the timeline of his pursuit of Rebecca, the financial benefits he would have gained from her income. It was ugly, but necessary. 3 weeks after the hospital incident, I was working late when Patricia called with an update that changed everything. David Mitchell wants to settle, she said without preamble. Settle what? The alienation of affection case. His attorney called this afternoon. They want to negotiate a financial settlement to avoid trial. How much are they offering? $50,000? I laughed. $50,000? For destroying my marriage? It's a starting offer. I think we can get more. The question is whether you want to settle or go to trial. What are the advantages of each? Trial gives us the chance for a larger judgment, but it's expensive and public. Settlement is faster and guaranteed, but probably less money. How much less money? If we settle, I think we can get them up to $150,000, maybe $200,000. If we go to trial and win, we could get $300,000 to $500,000. But if we lose, we get nothing and you're out legal fees. What are the chances of losing? Low, given the evidence we have, but you never know what a jury will do. I thought about it. $200,000 was substantial, but it wasn't really about the money. It was about accountability, about making David face consequences for his actions. I want to meet with him, I said. What? I want to sit down with David Mitchell face to face before we decide anything. Can you arrange that? Michael, that's not a good idea. There's no legal advantage to meeting with him, and it could create problems for our case. I don't care about legal advantages. I want to look him in the eye and hear him explain himself. Patricia sighed. If you insist. But I'll be there, and we're not negotiating anything. This is just a conversation. Fine. The meeting was scheduled for the following Friday at Patricia's office. I spent the week thinking about what I wanted to say to David, what questions I needed answered. But when Friday came, I realized I didn't have questions. I just wanted to see if he felt any remorse for what he'd done. David looked terrible. He'd lost weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He was dressed in a cheap suit that had seen better days, and he couldn't meet my eyes when he walked into the conference room. His attorney was a young woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Patricia sat beside me, legal pad ready, watching David like a hawk studying prey. Mr. Mitchell, I said when everyone was seated. Thank you for coming. David nodded but said nothing. I asked for this meeting because I wanted to understand something. Why my wife? Why Rebecca? David finally looked at me. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. You requested to work with her team. You pursued her specifically. Why her? David's attorney put her hand on his arm, but he shook his head. It wasn't like that. It wasn't calculated. No? Then explain it to me. We just connected. We understood each other. You understood each other. Yes. We both felt trapped in marriages that weren't working. We both wanted something more. I leaned forward. What kind of something more? Love, romance, or financial security? It wasn't about money. Really? Because you're drowning in debt, David. Credit cards, mortgage, car loans. Your house is in foreclosure. But Rebecca makes 6 figures and is married to a corporate attorney. That's quite a coincidence. David's face flushed. You think I'm some kind of gold digger? I think you're a man who saw an opportunity and took it. I think you targeted an unhappy woman who had access to the kind of life you wanted. That's not true. Then why haven't you told Rebecca about your financial problems? Why doesn't she know you're broke? David was quiet for a long moment. Because I was ashamed. Ashamed enough to lie to the woman you supposedly love? I didn't want her to think less of me. But not ashamed enough to stop pursuing her when you knew she was married. David's attorney leaned forward. Mr. Taylor, this line of questioning isn't productive. It's productive for me, I cut her off. I want to understand how someone justifies destroying 2 marriages for their own selfish purposes. I turned back to David. Do you have any idea what you've done? Sarah is selling her house. Your children are asking why Daddy doesn't live with them anymore. Rebecca is facing a career scandal that could destroy her professionally. All because you couldn't keep your promises. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, and now you want to settle out of court so you can avoid the consequences. I want to minimize the damage to everyone involved. Everyone involved. I shook my head. David, there is no minimizing this damage. Your marriage is over. My marriage is over. Your children's family is broken. Rebecca's career is in jeopardy. The damage is done. So what do you want from me? I want you to take responsibility. I want you to admit that you pursued a married woman for selfish reasons. I want you to acknowledge that you destroyed multiple lives for your own gratification. David stared at the table. I loved her. I still love her. Love? I laughed bitterly. You don't love Rebecca. You love what she represented. Security, success, a way out of your financial problems. If you loved her, you would have respected her marriage. You would have walked away. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You saw an opportunity and you took it. You manipulated an unhappy woman into betraying her vows. And when it all fell apart, you want to pay some money and make it go away. I stood up. Here's what's going to happen, David. I'm not settling. We're going to trial. I'm going to put every detail of your pursuit of my wife on public record. I'm going to show the world exactly what kind of man you are. And when it's over, you're going to pay whatever the jury decides you owe me. David's attorney started to protest, but I held up my hand. I'm done here. I looked at David one last time. I hope it was worth it. I hope those 6 months with my wife were worth destroying your children's family. I walked out of the conference room, leaving David staring at the table. Patricia caught up with me in the hallway. That was either very smart or very stupid, she said. Which do you think? I think David Mitchell just realized he's completely screwed. His attorney will call me tomorrow begging to reopen settlement negotiations. She was right. David's attorney called Monday morning with a new offer. $400,000 plus a public apology. $400,000, Patricia told me. That's serious money, Michael. And the public apology means he admits fault publicly. What kind of public apology? Full-page ad in the Charlotte Observer. Admission of his actions, apology to you and Sarah, acknowledgement of the harm he caused. I thought about it. $400,000 would more than cover my legal fees and provide some compensation for the destruction of my marriage. The public apology would ensure that everyone in Charlotte knew exactly what David Mitchell had done. Do it, I said. Accept the settlement. Good choice. I'll draft the terms today. That afternoon, I called Sarah Mitchell to let her know about the settlement. She deserved to know that David would be held accountable. $400,000, she repeated. That's more money than David has seen in years. The payment plan will be structured over time, I explained. He won't have to come up with it all at once. Good. I don't want his children to suffer more than they already have. She paused. Thank you, Michael, for making him face consequences. I'm sorry it had to happen this way. So am I, but at least now everyone will know the truth about what he did. The public apology ran in the Charlotte Observer 2 weeks later. It was brutal in its honesty. I, David Mitchell, publicly apologized to Michael Taylor, Sarah Mitchell, and my children for my inexcusable actions. I pursued and engaged in an adulterous relationship with Michael Taylor's wife, Rebecca Taylor, knowing that both of us were married to other people. My actions directly caused the destruction of 2 marriages and significant harm to innocent parties, including my own children. I take full responsibility for these actions and the pain they have caused. There is no excuse for what I did, and I am deeply sorry for the damage I have caused to multiple families. The ad created a sensation in Charlotte's professional community. David's name became synonymous with infidelity and betrayal. Any chance he had of rebuilding his career in the area was effectively ended. Rebecca called me the day the ad ran. Did you have to do this? She asked. Did you have to humiliate him publicly? I didn't humiliate him. He humiliated himself. The ad just made sure everyone knew about it. His children will see this. His family will see this. His children deserve to know the truth about their father, and his family already knows what he did. You're destroying him, Michael. Isn't the 400,000 enough? No, it's not enough. It's not enough for the 11 years I wasted on a marriage built on lies. It's not enough for the humiliation of finding out about your affair from a hospital nurse. It's not enough for discovering that my wife planned to leave me without having the courage to tell me herself. I was going to tell you. When? When was the right time going to be, Rebecca? After another month of lies? Another year? She was quiet for a moment. I know you hate me. I don't hate you. I'm disappointed in you. I'm disgusted by your choices, but I don't hate you. What's the difference? Hate would mean I still cared enough to feel passion about you. I don't. You're just someone I used to know. That seemed to hurt her more than anything else I'd said. 6 months after the hospital call, our divorce was finalized. Rebecca got minimal spousal support, just enough to help her transition to independent living. I kept the condo, the vacation home, and most of our investments. She kept her retirement account and her car. Rebecca had found a new job with a smaller marketing firm in Raleigh, about 3 hours away. The healthcare industry in Charlotte had effectively blacklisted her after the scandal became public. She was starting over at 35, alone and professionally damaged. David had filed for bankruptcy and moved back in with his parents in another state. Sarah got the house in the divorce settlement, but she had to sell it anyway to cover debts. She and the children moved to a smaller place across town. As for me, something unexpected happened. The way I'd handled the crisis, professionally, strategically, without becoming emotional or vindictive, had impressed the senior partners at my firm. 6 months after the divorce was final, I was promoted to senior partner and given oversight of the firm's family law division. You showed remarkable grace under pressure, managing partner Robert Coleman told me. You handled a personal crisis like a professional, and that's exactly the kind of character we want in leadership. The promotion came with a substantial salary increase and equity in the firm. Financially, I was better off than I'd ever been. Personally, I was still adjusting to single life. Jim Morrison convinced me to start dating again 8 months after the divorce. You're 40 years old, successful, and available, he said. Half the single women in Charlotte would kill for a chance with you. He introduced me to Dr. Amanda Foster, an emergency medicine physician at Carolina's Medical Center. Ironically, the same hospital where my marriage had ended. Amanda was 32, brilliant, and had no patience for games or drama. I heard about what happened to you, she said over dinner on our first date. Your ex-wife and her affair partner. That must have been devastating. It was, but it's over now. Good. I don't date men who are still angry about their exes. Life's too short. Amanda was everything Rebecca hadn't been. Direct, honest, focused on her career, and completely uninterested in playing the victim when life got difficult. She worked 12-hour shifts in the ER, saved lives on a daily basis, and never complained about being tired or stressed. I like competent people, she told me on our third date. People who handle their responsibilities without drama. You seem like someone who solves problems instead of creating them. 6 months later, we were living together. A year after that, I proposed. Amanda said yes immediately. I've been waiting for you to ask, she said. I don't like uncertainty in my personal life any more than I do in my professional life. We were married in a small ceremony at the country club, where Rebecca and I had been members. Some of the same people who had attended my first wedding were there, but the tone was completely different. There was no drama, no family politics, no stress about details. Amanda had planned the entire event like a medical procedure. efficiently, thoroughly, with contingencies for every possible problem. This is how marriage should feel, my mother told me during the reception. Easy, natural. Like you both chose this because it makes sense, not because you're trying to prove something. She was right. Marrying Amanda felt like the most logical decision I'd ever made. We were compatible professionally, intellectually, and personally. We shared similar values about work, money, and family. We respected each other's careers and independence. Most importantly, we were honest with each other. When Amanda was stressed about a difficult case, she told me. When I was frustrated with a client, I told her. When we disagreed about something, we discussed it directly instead of letting resentment build. 2 years after marrying Amanda, I was named managing partner of the firm. At 43, I was the youngest managing partner in the firm's history. My crisis management during the divorce had become something of a legend in Charlotte's legal community. You turned personal disaster into professional opportunity, a colleague told me. That's either brilliant strategy or incredible luck. Maybe both, I said. Rebecca, meanwhile, had struggled to rebuild her career. The Charlotte marketing community was small and tight-knit, and word of the affair had followed her to Raleigh. She'd been laid off twice in 3 years and was currently working for a small firm that specialized in medical device marketing, a step down from her previous position. I learned this from mutual friends, not because I kept tabs on her. Occasionally, someone would mention seeing her or hearing about her struggles, but I felt nothing about it. No satisfaction, no sympathy, no anger. She was just someone from my past, like a college roommate or a former neighbor. David had fared even worse. The bankruptcy had destroyed his credit, and his professional reputation had been ruined by the public apology. He was working in sales for a small company in another state, making a fraction of his previous income. Sarah had remarried, a decent man who treated her children well. She seemed happy, which I was glad to hear. 5 years after the 3 a.m. call, I was speaking at the Charlotte Bar Association's annual dinner. The topic was crisis management and professional ethics. I stood at the podium, looking out at 300 of Charlotte's most successful attorneys, and shared what I'd learned. Crisis reveals character, I began. When everything falls apart, when your personal life implodes, when you're faced with betrayal and humiliation, you have a choice. You can become bitter and vindictive, or you can handle the situation with professionalism and integrity. I talked about the importance of strategic thinking during emotional turmoil, about using professional skills to handle personal problems, about the long-term benefits of taking the high road even when you want to lash out. 5 years ago, I received a phone call that changed my life, I continued. My wife had been in a car accident with her lover. In that moment, I could have let anger and hurt drive my decisions. Instead, I treated it like any other legal problem that needed solving. I gathered evidence, built a case, and pursued justice through proper channels. I looked out at the audience, many of whom knew the story. The result was that I not only survived the crisis but emerged stronger. My ex-wife's poor choices became the foundation for my professional advancement. Her betrayal opened the door to a better marriage, a more successful career, and a clearer understanding of my own values. After the speech, a young attorney approached me. Mr. Taylor, I'm going through a difficult divorce myself. My wife cheated with her personal trainer. I'm so angry I can barely think straight. How did you keep from wanting revenge? I did want revenge, I told him honestly. But I realized that the best revenge is success. Build the life you want, with people who share your values. Let your ex-spouse deal with the consequences of their choices while you focus on moving forward. That's easier said than done. Yes, it is. But the alternative is spending years being angry about something you can't change. That's not a life. That's a prison. Driving home that night, I thought about how different my life would have been if I'd handled the crisis differently. If I'd tried to forgive Rebecca, if I'd fought the divorce, if I'd let anger consume me instead of channeling it into strategic action. I probably would have stayed married to someone who didn't respect our vows. I would have missed the opportunity to build something real with Amanda. I might have remained a senior associate instead of becoming managing partner. I certainly wouldn't have learned that I was capable of handling the worst kind of personal betrayal with grace and intelligence. When I got home, Amanda was in bed reading medical journals. She looked up when I walked in. "How was the speech?" "Good. People seem to respond well to it." "I'm sure they did. You have an interesting story to tell." She set down her journal. "Do you ever regret how you handled things with Rebecca?" It was a question Amanda had never asked before, and I considered it carefully. "No," I said finally. "I regret that I didn't see the problems in our marriage earlier. I regret that I trusted someone who wasn't trustworthy. But I don't regret how I handled the crisis once it happened." "Because you got justice?" "Because I got clarity. About who I am, what I value, what kind of life I want to build. Rebecca's betrayal forced me to examine everything and decide what was worth keeping." Amanda smiled. "And what was worth keeping?" "My professional integrity, my commitment to honesty, my belief that people should be held accountable for their actions." I sat on the edge of the bed. "And my faith that it's possible to find someone who shares those values, even after someone you loved betrayed them?" "Especially after that. Rebecca's betrayal didn't destroy my ability to trust. It just taught me to be more careful about who I trust." Amanda reached for my hand. "I'm glad you learned that lesson before you met me." "So am I." Looking back now, 7 years after that 3 a.m. phone call, I can see that it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because I enjoyed the pain or humiliation, but because it forced me to confront hard truths about my marriage, my values, and my own character. Rebecca had been right about one thing. Our marriage had become routine, comfortable but passionless. We'd stopped growing together and started simply coexisting. If the affair hadn't happened, we might have stayed married for decades, living parallel lives, settling for mediocrity. Instead, her betrayal gave me the opportunity to start over with someone who was genuinely compatible with me. Amanda and I don't just love each other, we respect each other, challenge each other, support each other's ambitions. We're partners in the truest sense of the word. The legal victory over David was satisfying, but the real victory was discovering that I could survive the worst kind of betrayal and emerge stronger. That I could handle a personal crisis with the same strategic thinking I brought to professional challenges. That I could choose integrity over revenge, even when revenge would have felt better in the moment. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Rebecca had simply been honest about her unhappiness from the beginning. If she'd suggested counseling or separation, or simply told me she wasn't in love with me anymore. We could have ended our marriage with dignity, divided our assets fairly, and wished each other well. But she didn't choose honesty. She chose deception, betrayal, and ultimately, destruction. Those choices had consequences, for her, for David, for their respective families. I didn't create those consequences. I simply made sure they were enforced. In the end, that 3 a.m. phone call didn't just end my marriage. It began my real life. The life I was meant to live, with someone who valued the same things I did, built on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. Crisis really does reveal character. And sometimes, when you discover that someone you loved lacks the character you thought they had, the best thing you can do is build a better life without them. 3 months ago, Amanda and I welcomed our first child, a daughter we named Grace. As I held her in the hospital, a different hospital than where my first marriage ended, I thought about the family we're building together. A family based on honesty, commitment, and shared values. Grace will grow up knowing that her parents chose each other carefully, that we didn't settle for convenience or comfort, that we built something real together. She'll learn that actions have consequences, that integrity matters more than immediate gratification, that the right choices aren't always the easy choices. Most importantly, she'll learn that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can become the foundation for the best thing that ever happens to you. That crisis, handled with wisdom and grace, can become opportunity. That's the real lesson of the 3 a.m. call. Not that people will betray you, but that you can survive betrayal and build something better. Not that marriage is fragile, but that the right marriage is worth waiting for. Not that love is a risk, but that love based on shared character and values is the safest investment you can make. As I write this, Rebecca is reportedly engaged to someone new, a marketing executive she met in Raleigh. I wish her well. I hope she's learned from her mistakes and found someone who makes her genuinely happy. I hope she's built a relationship based on honesty this time. David, according to the last report I heard, is still struggling financially and professionally. He never remarried, never fully recovered from the public scandal. His children see him every other weekend, and he's apparently a devoted father despite his failures as a husband. I hope he's learned from his mistakes too. Sarah remarried 3 years ago to a teacher who adopted David's children. They seem happy and stable, which is the best possible outcome for those kids. Sarah sent me a wedding announcement, which I thought was a gracious gesture. She deserved happiness after everything she went through. As for me, I'm exactly where I should be. Managing partner of a successful law firm, married to an extraordinary woman, father to a beautiful daughter, active in my community, financially secure, and professionally respected. None of that would have been possible if I'd stayed married to Rebecca, if I'd tried to forgive the unforgivable, if I'd let emotion override judgment. The 3 a.m. call that ended my first marriage began my real life. And for that, despite all the pain it caused at the time, I'm grateful. Sometimes the worst phone call you ever receive is the one that saves you from a life you didn't realize wasn't worth living. Sometimes betrayal is the gift that reveals who people really are, and who you really are too. 7 years later, I sleep peacefully next to a woman who would never lie to me, in a home built on mutual respect and shared dreams, secure in the knowledge that I made the right choices when everything fell apart. The 3 a.m. call woke me up in more ways than one, and I've been wide awake ever since.